In a moment, what you'll be seeing is our MYPF Peace Fellows for the year 2022, and they're going to be sharing with us a little bit about themselves, their projects, and then tie their what they've learned and what they're working on into the themes of this conference. So let me spotlight them for you, and we can start. Let's start by, could each of you introduce yourselves and tell us a little bit about who you are and how you joined the program?
Hi, my name is Duija Adamala. I'm currently a senior at Olympia High School, and I got involved with the Mike Yaros Peace Fellowship because I had an interest of solving economic injustices and inequities within my community, and then amplifying that to help other communities.
Hi, my name's Abigail. Sorry, I'm a junior at North Thurston High School, and I got involved with Mike Garris Peace Fellow through my BSU advisor who sent out information about it, and I immediately became interested because I wanted to find a way to help, like Dewey just said, things in social injustices in my community, specifically focusing on educational inequality and inequities between schools.
Right, who's next? And thank you, Abigail. Nisaya, Nanaya, are you there? Okay, we can come back to them. Let's go into a little bit more about your project. Can you share with us what you've been working on this year? Give us some insights. Let's start with Juija. And then we'll also have time at the end for questions from. So think about your questions beforehand, and then we'll take questions from the chat from the audience.
Yeah, sounds good. Sorry, I'm at like a school right now, so it's like kind of loud. I don't know if you can hear me all right. But my project is pretty much focused on delivering steps that communities can take to combat economic injustice within their own community. And to do that specifically, I plan on rolling out like a 4-part workshop series after winter break, around spring break-ish time, so that like people can attend and learn about what steps they can take, even if it's like a small step, because like regardless of the size, it's still a step, and it's opening the door for conversation, which I think is key.
Thank you, Juija. Christine? Or sorry, Abigail and then Christine.
Um, so basically what my project was about, I went through many stages about figuring out what I really wanted to focus on. By the end, I realized that I really wanted to focus on educational inequality. So to do that, I decided to do a lot of research by reading a lot of articles, watching documentaries, especially about stories about people who have really real time experience educational inequality and just what it's like to be in their shoes and just the things that happen in their communities. So I used all that research to develop a podcast, which is more with my friends and I, which is more of like a roundtable discussion for each of us to share our experiences and to really talk about what it means to be a person of color, especially a student of color in America, and just see how our experiences match up with others and how we can relate and the um, differences between us.
Thank you, Abigail. And Christine?
Yeah, I can also introduce myself. So my name is Christine, and I'm a junior at Olympia High School. And I've actually been a part of the fellowship for 2 years now, because last year it was during COVID, and then Janice reached out with me to the opportunity to have kind of a more like in-depth training this year. And I got introduced to this program by two um, previous fellows who were a part of my Climate Action Club. And my project description might be a little bit long because I worked on 2 projects with the 2 years that I was a part of this fellowship. So for the first project, it kind of started in 8th grade, and then I got more help from FOR later on. So around like in 8th grade, I went to a girls' coding camp founded by a nonprofit that offered free coding lessons and networking opportunities And I really loved that experience because previously I had no experience with STEM or just computer science at all, but now it's something that I want to go into in the future. So I was really grateful for that opportunity. And the great thing about computer science is that you can mix it up with like social justice work and other opportunities, because the one thing I love about computer science is how versatile it is, because you can combine it with like almost any interest that you have. And from there, I started learning more about how to code, and I eventually started working with some student-led nonprofits that taught underprivileged kids in their communities how to code. And those were with girls that I met with camp. And eventually I wanted to bring that experience to my own district. So I started like online over COVID. I started like organizing lessons and teaching kids after school how to code. And I first started that at my elementary school. And then I eventually went to some more like Washington-based schools in our area. And that was all over COVID. Um, and I feel like my district does a pretty good job of bringing computer science to secondary schools, and I wanted to bring them to primary schools as well to develop the early pattern, because 70% of the students in AP computer science classes are actually middle and upper class students that also have a parent or guardian that have encouraged them to take that class. So people on the lower economic spectrum are statistically less likely to take a CS class, which is a problem because at least 70% of careers in the future that will be able to sustain a household will require basic computer science education. So I started, after teaching kids after school, I wanted to bring that into the curriculum so more kids would have access to it, and not only just kids who had time after school. And so for the past 2 years, I've been working with the district to develop a curriculum and also train teachers to bring that curriculum into schools. And hopefully that will be implemented before I graduate. And if not, there will be somewhat of a start, and I'll continue with working with the district when I'm in college. And I want to do that through the librarian program and bring CS to underprivileged groups, especially women, the Latinx community, and the African American community. And I've received a lot of help from the Euro Peace Fellowship from that, especially Bruce, Janice, and Mary Lowe, because I've gotten a lot of helpful feedback. And I'm continuing to get advice from this amazing group because there are still a lot of hurdles to go through. And then my second project is more of a recent project that I started over the summer, when I recently took up a school board position in my district, and I decided to create a district-wide student equity committee with the other student reps in my area. And by equity, we mean to address not only race, but gender, sexuality, accessibility, and of course, economic injustice. Like, for example, we didn't have the free lunch program this year, which a lot of other schools in Washington do have, and just a lot of other like issues, like for college and the high school programs, the school doesn't cover that, while a lot of other schools in Washington does cover that program. So far, we've worked on a few projects, but our primary work right now revolves around creating a student-led equity survey to give to staff, students, and families to gather that important data to present to the Olympia School District Equity Board in their work to create a new equity policy.
Thank you, Christine. All right, we have Nasai and Anaya who just joined us. Would you introduce yourselves and then tell us a bit about your project this year? Whoever wants to go first. Nasaya, do you want to start us off?
Sure, I can. My name is Nasara. I'm 14 and I live in Canada, and I'm going to LCCHS. And my project is, I expanded it a little bit more. It was supposed kind of on soil erosion, but I went in and went into more detail and started doing like global warming and climate change. And so right now I'm working on that. And also there's a programs in my school that are also talking about that I'm going to try to get into a little bit more and learn a little bit more about it because it's something I learned a lot about it when I was younger, like growing up to like grade 1 or like to like third grade, fourth grade. And then eventually I just stopped talking about it like fifth grade and like high school and stuff. But now I'm like trying to get back on it and learn a little bit more about it because it's something really important, like, and that's happening like right now with like in the news and stuff that's going around. So I tried to get more involved into that. So yeah.
Thank you, Nisaya. Nanaya?
Yeah. Hi, I'm Nanaya and I'm in Canada, in Montreal. I'm 15 years old and my project is also like based on around like climate change and stuff. Right now in school, like in science, I'm working on like a climate change kind of like project. So like how like how like how fossil fuels affect the environment and all that. And I'm working on a project with two other friends, and we're just basically saying what like natural and like eco kind of situations would be better for our planet and stuff. So yeah, that's what I'm working on right now.
Thank you all. So, in light of this conference, we wanted to delve a little bit into economic justice. What is something that people in the audience, or yourselves, or just people across generations, what can they do to create economic justice? And you can tie this back to your project and maybe what you're doing and what you might have other people do as well. And we can go in the same order. So, starting with Dweja.
Sounds good. I would say primarily initiating economic justice starts with opening the door to conversation because in our extremely divided communities, especially now and like political turmoil, it's hard to often like, see the similarities that connect us rather than seeing the differences that are so apparent. Um, but I honestly believe that we have more in similar than we have in different, and realizing that and overcoming that, starting conversation that is truly meaningful about economic justice, the steps we can take, is genuinely the start for initiating economic justice. Because if we keep continuing in our polarized communities and don't take steps to combat that polarization first, I think that it'll become a lot worse. So starting with conversation. And my project strives to do that by creating open spaces where people can speak their truths, but also feel discomfort and like understand other people's opinions truly, and then develop their own opinions and take steps as a community rather than as individuals.
Thank you, Dweja. All right, who's next?
I completely agree with what Dee just said, and just to add on to that, I think just like what she said, opening space for discussion, but also just opening space for education, and just having people be educated about things that they don't know about. Because when you're trying to talk to people about topics that they usually are not as educated about, they can become sometimes tense about it and not as open to. But just coming forward with just meaningful conversation, I think really makes a big difference. And then tying it back to my project, I think economic justice is such a huge thing, especially for education, equality, especially in neighborhoods or communities that are lower in socioeconomic status. So I think just making sure that they have economic justice, because from my research, I've seen that low people in more impoverished and lower socioeconomic statuses don't have as good of resources in their schools and don't have as good of teachers and buildings for students to be able to learn in the proper way that they should be, which continues to tie and really it just is more like a pipeline to people dropping out of high school and then the school to prison pipeline. So it all really connects. And I think just really starting from that first point of just education, just making sure people know what's happening, how it's happening, and just how to fix it really can start those building blocks to really finding a solution.
Thank you, Abigail. Messiah, whenever you're ready, we'd love to hear your thoughts.
Oh, okay. 1 second.
Take your time. I think it's kind of nice for the audience to be able to reflect as well on what everyone's saying, because these are really great insights. It's one question about economic justice, but so many different projects and different angles that we're handling it from. So hopefully everyone's able to take a little bit from here and there, and maybe you might resonate with one project more, or another type of social justice angle. But at the end of the day, we're all kind of putting these little puzzle pieces together. So Christine, oh, I think we're having some technical difficulties. Christine, do you want to come up, and then Nisaya, when you're ready, we can come back to you?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
So to answer the question, I can relate it to my projects. So I think I resonated a lot with what Abigail said about kind of breaking the pattern. And I think that does have a lot to do with early childhood education and career preparation. So I think like a lot of actions that can serve economic justice include efforts to end like gender-driven wage gaps and providing more career preparation and education to lower income students and families and at-risk segments of the population, because I think it is really important to like break the pattern early on and just provide that these opportunities that aren't normally given to these minority groups. I also really agree with what we just said about starting the conversations, because my district at Olympia High School, we've started having a lot of equity related conversations and having student leaders going into homerooms to facilitate cultural awareness conversations and equity related activities. And I'm one of the student leaders going into these classrooms and just having these conversations about like social and economic injustice is really important, because I see that all the students who are in those classrooms are on a learning curve.
Thank you, Christine. And apologies, we are having some technical difficulties, but we'll get those resolved shortly. In the meantime, in the chat, we've got our first question. It's from Carrie, and it says, very impressed by all the MyPF women, that would be you. How aware are your fellow students in your schools about issues of climate change and other social issues? Um, Anyone can take this, or we can go in the same order. Dweja?
Yeah, I can start. I think that a lot of kids at my school specifically are aware of climate change and other social issues, but the problem is, as I said before, like polarization and like the lack of conversation around certain topics. Like right now, we just started initiating more conversations about equity and equity related things, but there are other problems that are kind of at the heart of that, and like we're starting to start the conversation, but like I feel like once we get into more conversation, that's when more kids are going to be able to truly develop their perspectives, and like kind of break free from this polarized world. And so yeah, that's I would say.
Thank you. Other thoughts?
Um,
Abigail?
Um, I definitely agree. I would say that a lot of kids at my school specifically are aware of the problems and they know what's going on. And we have like a few kind of places for people to voice their opinions on it and just to be with other like-minded people like VSU. And then we have other like climate clubs and just kind of committees like that. So I would definitely say that they're aware, but also like Deweja was saying, I think that you can be aware, but also not really actually know what's happening and not really know the depths and the actual root of it. So I think that is probably the main problem, is that they're aware of like the base issue and just the overall issue, but not really just the roots of it and the intricacies of it. And so I think just that ties right back into education and just seeing that everyone actually knows what's happening and just how it's happening, and not just like they know the problem, but they don't know like why the problem or how it started or just how it's affecting people, especially people that could be their age. So I think that just starting that, like Deidre was saying, starting that just more in-depth conversation about it would really help, kind of help people or youth really understand just the depths of the problem instead of just the base overall.
Thank you, Abigail. Um, Nanaya, the question was on basically what you see in the people around you and at school, if they're also aware about climate change and other social issues. And feel free to jump in on this.
Okay, so a lot of people at my school, they are aware, but like Abigail and Deidre were saying, they're just like under like not really educated on the situations. They they know like what climate change is, but they don't exactly know how it's affecting everything else and how much of an impact it has on us and our world and our community. And I think we should just like it's like raising awareness and like just educating people on it a little bit more so they can understand the depths of how it affects us.
Thank you. And then in the chat, Nasaya said she's having some technical difficulties, but adding on to the economical justice, I would say global debates about human-caused climate change have largely focused on wide-ranging discussions about the impact on our social and economic futures. Thank you, Nasaya. And Christine.
Yeah, I'm actually an officer on the Climate Action Club at my school, and we've done a lot of work around just like climate education. And I think a lot of people, like everyone at my school knows what climate change is. I think like a a problem that I've been noticing is actually getting students to care about it, um, to care about like not throwing like garbage in the wrong bin or just stuff like that, because I think there's a lot of assumptions that someone else will fix the problem. But that's not a really good approach to things, because I used to have that mindset as well. Like when I did something, I was like, oh, it's fine. Like someone else is like a vegan. So they'll like cancel out like my just injustices. So I think one of the biggest problems is getting people to care, along with having deeper conversations about climate change. And definitely getting them, I think that can be solved by getting more youth involved in like climate justice and like those activities, because we made a climate report card to give to the Olympia City Council a few years ago, and we're currently working on one again, and we're trying to get more people involved in that work to hopefully just deepen the amount of awareness around climate change and the amount of people who do care about this problem.
Thank you, Christine, and thank you all. That was very insightful. So following up with that, we've got Jean Gant asking, do you see a way to connect with younger students, middle school and upper elementary, about concepts of equity and social justice issues? That's a really great question. Thank you, Jean. Dweja, do you want to start us off?
Yeah, I could take this. I think that a key to getting more people involved at like multiple levels of education is just starting exposure early. I can see connections to this, like especially with when we're learning about like Native American heritage, as this is Native American Heritage Month. Like taking active steps to start embedding that history into our curriculum. And we can also do the same thing with economic injustice and other forms of injustice as well. Like if we're teaching a math class or a science class, just find connections and draw those parallels so that these kids understand that these injustices go beyond just what's on the surface level. And so there are growing up with those realizations rather than coming to those realizations after a point and having to do some unlearning of what perceptions they've been put into earlier in life.
Thank you. Abigail? And these are all
Um,
great, by the way.
yeah, I definitely think that there's a way to expose younger students, especially those in elementary and middle school, to concepts about equity and social justice, because I think that those kind of concepts are not something that you just face when you're in high school or you're going to college. I think that it still affects kids who are in elementary school and middle school, so there is a need to really to inform them about these things, and I think that a lot of people sometimes underestimate how much an elementary schooler can understand. Like, these are not kind of two difficult topics to talk about to elementary schoolers, because I definitely think that it is necessary for everyone at any age to know about these kind of issues. And like Luigi was saying, that you don't have to really just like push it all onto them at once, but just as they are going through middle school, elementary school, to just expose them to different types of culture, different types of history, so that they know that there isn't just one way of things, that there are so many different cultures, heritages that came to be for it to be how it is now. And so you don't have to be like in high school and learning about so many different things that you should have been taught about like in elementary school. And just like Luigi was saying, having to unlearn those things when you should just be learning them as you're on the way up, instead of just having to kind of have a big kind of like history or culture shock at kind of like a social justice awakening, just learning about all these different new things, when it should be that you already knew all these things because you were taught them as they were growing up, and that they were integrated into your history curriculum, English, like every different department. I think that there is definitely an opportunity to embed kind of those topics about social justice and equity.
Thank you, Abigail. And Nanaya?
Yes, I think that also we should like introduce this into like our curriculums at school, but also that parents should like um show awareness to their kids about these things, and like not like force it all onto them at once, and like do it like as they get older, teach them a little bit more about the history of like injustice and stuff, so they won't be confused or overwhelmed.
Thank you. Um, and then Nasaya said in the chat, teaching young children about bias and social justice is one way we can change the future to ensure everyone has basic human rights. Social justice is a problem that we should all care about. It takes all of us working together to ensure that everyone has rights as a human being and learning at a young age. Thank you so much, Nasaya. I completely agree. Okay, Christine.
I think a lot of my thoughts have been echoed by a lot of the other fellows in their answers. But yeah, I agree. I feel like just like math and science, how it's being taught, like how you kind of need to know one thing to learn about the other. I think just having like equity incorporated lessons into classrooms would be really beneficial, because Mary Lowe and I actually talked about this, about a curriculum that has been developed, but like maybe equity related issues into history classrooms, or just more relevant like non-biased history textbooks written by non-biased history historians.
Awesome. Thank you all. So for our last question, I thought we would go in backwards order, if that works for you, Christine. But you actually put a question from Mary Margaret in the chat, so thank you to you and Mary Margaret. The question is, what kind of reception are you getting from your classmates? Are they supporting your activism or absorbed in other priorities or disinterested? And this is a really interesting question. Thank you, Mary Margaret.
I think it's really a case by case situation, because a lot of my friends, they they aren't very involved in social justice work, nor do they have a lot of interest in it at all. Like they have a lot of other priorities that they have been doing, and it's been a little bit hard for me to find people to work with on my first project relating to teaching kids how to code. But as for the equity group, it's been really easy to find people who are interested in that work, because there's so many equity groups at my school and just equity groups across the district that have a lot of passion around this work.
Amazing. Anyone else want to jump in? We can just kind of do a lightning round. Messiah, you're back. Yay. Do you want to jump?
Okay. Yeah, I could say, wait, let me read it again, the paragraph, because okay, so basically a lot of my classmates, it's really hard to teach a lot of them about like nonviolence and my project that I'm working on, because some of them like don't really care or aren't really as concerned as like some of my students are, and some of them aren't, like are more focused on like, you know, like cars and like clothes and different types of stuff. But there's a program for certain people who actually do like want to learn about this stuff in my school. So I think only three people I think in my grade are interested. But she said my principal and my staff said they're trying to get more of the children interested in it. But I think that it's something that I really need to like focus on more, and try not to get distracted from my classmates and like what they're doing, and focus more on me personally and what I want to do, and like not really what they want to do. So
Thank you. And I'm looking at the clock, and in the interest of time, that will have to be our last one. But I thought we might want to end on a more positive note. So, starting with Dweja, we can just go around, just say a few words about what you want the audience to take away. Why should we have reason to be hopeful about the future of social justice?
Yeah, I think the biggest reason that we should be hopeful is the fact that we have the power to start conversation. There's no cost to that. There's no barriers to starting conversation. You could talk to anyone. You could talk to someone at Safeway. It's just starting those conversations and keeping an open mind. And I really appreciate how those two things are kind of stringless, and you could do that with anyone.
Amazing. Yes, Abigail.
I think that there's a lot of reason to be hopeful because I think that especially in this generation and from people just seeing what has happened in the past few years regarding social justice, that there are a lot more people willing and wanting to help and wanting to just improve these circumstances. So I think just finding those people, seeking those people, and just having those conversations will really make a big difference in just expanding and just finding solutions.
Thank you, Abigail. Nanaya?
I think we should be really hopeful, especially for this generation, because we have a range to like connect with people, and there's like more like associations and programs for people who are struggling with any kind of like economic justice. So I think that's better for us because we have like more attachments to what we're working on, and it's best.
Thank you, Nanaya. Messiah?
yes, I really do agree with Nanaya, since there is a lot of more technology and a lot more programs. I like now some people are really more interested these days, because there's a lot of more stuff that we can like gain from it and learn a little bit more about. So I think in the future it would either get like better and like, or like it can get worse and worse. But there's a lot of people that are talking about this a lot more, and it's getting a little bit better, and it's becoming a bigger conversation. And I think that's why we should be really hopeful and trust this process, because it might go really well.
Thank you. And Christine?
Yeah, I think we have a lot of reason to be hopeful for the future because of the idea of like a legacy and like the legacy of previous social activists who have kind of set a path for like student activists to do their work, because I think it is a lot easier for us to do a lot of the work that we do today, because like previous activists and just mentors who are activists have given us a lot of advice and experience, and I think that is going to be like a chain of like education that goes forward. Like I think like almost all of us here will probably be teaching more about activism to future generations, and that chain will continue. I think there and I think as the chain continues, there will be a lot more to teach and a lot more conversations to talk to like open up and talk about.
Thank you, Christine, and thank you all. Could we get a round of applause for our panelists? Yay. That concludes the end of our panel. Thank you all for coming out, taking time out of your days. I know you're all super busy with school and work, and it's just amazing that you're doing this with your time and your energy and your spirit, and we appreciate all of it. So feel free.